How's it going, guys? Man, I don't know how to describe this. I want to make this video. It is not taking pot shots at any specific builder, but I've had some videos sent to me, videos I've been tagged in, and this is over a long period of time, and then I come across a video today, which, how do I put this? I about broke a tooth. I cringed so bad when I saw what was done. And I do things different, I guess. I cut chambers on a lathe. I cut them with Dino Joe's mandrel. You can get good results with this. I think if you don't have a 4-jawed chuck, and you don't necessarily have to have a 4-jawed chuck to cut a chamber. You can set it up on a flat plate or whatever and do it with a 3-jaw. It's you have to think outside the box, and you got to think a little harder on how to tram stuff in. But this, for the average hobbyist, is an absolute awesome alternative. You can cut chambers with a lathe. You can, if you wanted to dial in one with a rotary table and with a custom milling bit, you can cut a chamber with a mill. There's lots of ways to do things. But how let me grab the ruler and some other things here. Alright, I've made videos on this before, but let's go over the basics again. This, if you're using this and not using this, that's a no-no. This plate is designed for a stop. You have your cutter. This is for chip relief. I turn my cylinders this way. These ones fit a little loose, that's why there's electric tape to stop this from, so I can hold them in. This one holds it in down here. When you set your cylinder on here, see that play? That's designed for a reason. When I'm sliding this down, I'm holding it towards me so my cutter bit is not gouging up putting a scratch in the cylinder wall. You take this on and off a bunch so you can blow chips and stuff out. You don't want to be putting a scratch in your cylinder every time you take it on and off. And to set the depth, I have about 4 or 5 different razor blades that are all various thicknesses. These are the two I use the most on, and I will prove it to you. I'm 0. 2 razor blades. 40 thou. Okay, I have these where I can flip and flop. I can cut as much as 65 out as I want. The side that the cutter's on, I always face the cutter towards me. I think Dino Joe does it the other way where he's pulling away from it. I like to push down and back to the wall. But say if I haven't already started cutting this chamber, that's what that plate's for. When this is loose, or you can move this up and down, the cutter's touching up here. I slide this up till these touch, and there's just light pressure on it. I tighten it down. Okay, I know no matter how many times I twirl this around, I'm not going to go past 40 thousandths of an inch. Okay? And if you, let me grab a, I hear people all the time, well, my piston clicks and clacks and hits, so on and so forth. When, let's say, and excuse my shitty artwork, but let's say here's the cylinder wall, here's your chamber up here. That tool, this is going to be an over exaggeration, let's say is right here, and then you got the chamber cutter inside, and then you got your 2 rings, right, and then you got your flat plate down here. When I slide that on, I pull the cylinder this way so it's touching up up in here so this tool has clearance so I can slide it down. And then I set my depth with the razor blades down here. Well, it'll be on this side actually, because here's our tool. Then I push down and back. So this is up against this way. And then as I'm twirling it, it's cutting. If you slack off pressure and don't keep this side tight to this wall at all, in your cylinder when you're cutting it, you're going to put some steps where that bit has walked out and come back in. And once you've done a circle, you can't come back around and clip that off, and that's where people are having problems with. That's why I keep it tight. And then let's say this is your chamber, and then I heard another gentleman say that, well, this cuts crooked. No, it don't. You don't need 3 cutters to cut crooked. When you start out, your pressure point's here where the tool's cutting, but down here, let's say this is your cylinder, where you spaced it out your 40 thousandths. Once this portion and tangs, or the bottom flat spot of the cylinder if you're doing a steel, comes down and contacts, it is now flat. And as long as you are square to your cylinder wall, you keep going around and around and around. I'm at that stage right now with this cylinder. I'll show you. When I go to lift these off, see the play? I pull it away from my cut and then gently come up. So I am not dragging this tool up there. But we're at the lumpy bumpy stage right now where I'm almost done cutting this. And this one has put up a fight. For same thing, I'm towards it, coming down, so I'm not dragging the tool. And if you feel the tool catch, stop, jiggle it around, pull it towards you, so you don't. And once I'm down, down and back, I put down pressure on it, and then I'm going to keep spinning this thing. And I'm in the final stages. It's hardly cutting anymore. All it's doing now is, because I'm down touching the skirts, all I'm doing now is just clipping off the remaining high spots that chattered on me. So I'm just getting a fine powder, and then constantly feel this, make sure you're not getting anything like stuck to it, and then I'll just back glide a file onto it and run a file backwards on it just to make sure. And then same thing, down, this is the final stages of this. And essentially I just keep going until I don't get any more powder. I've got the compressor turned off. Clean out, check, make sure we're not getting a jagged tool. The smoother this edge is, the better the cut. These Husky cylinders do not cut as nice as steel cylinders do, but you can still achieve, and you cannot be in a rush. If you're trying to rush it, this is a hobby for me, guys. I'm a hobbyist. Take your time. If this takes me 2 hours, I don't care. I mean, I kind of do care, but I don't care. I'm not gonna sit there and try to rush through this in 5 minutes. I'm not that kind of porter. I want to do as clean and steady work as I can, however long it takes. I will say probably you get the best finish on a lathe, but if I was to do this on my lathe, I'm 20 minutes to clean the lathe off, and then probably 20 minutes, if not 40 minutes, to dial it all in and get it set up, and then it's literally 30 to 40 seconds to cut it, when I can just spend typically a half hour of my time on this. I'm in no rush. Got a couple kernels off there. Okay. It's looking pretty decent for one of these for one of these cylinders. But I am in the I'm just getting baby powder now. Blow this out one more time. I can see that I'm starting to hit my plate down here. Now my plate has been used. I'm gonna have to get another one of these from Joe or make one. I wish Joe would make this about twice as thick as it is, if not 3 times thicker. That way I can chuck this up periodically from time to time and re-true my surfaces, because even though I set out here for 40, this is probably going to be a 45 band cut just from the, now I can flip this over and start over, but I haven't done, I've cut a lot of chambers on this, guys, but I think this will be, depending on what my shavings look like there. Typically when it's making that sound, it's just, she's pretty much done. Yeah. So, now if you wanted to make this look a little better, another thing too, I use a straight edge up against here into there, and then bring my cutter out and touch it and tighten it down. That's imperative. Don't eyeball it. I'm true here, true here. We know this is squared. When we're cutting the chamber, we're square to the wall. That way I know I'm straight. And I've been asked, can you cut tapers on this? Absolutely, you can cut tapers on this. I've been meaning to do it to mine. A few upgrades if you're watching this, Joe. I think sinking it in and having 2 set screws, and then underneath it put an adjustable set screw. You can tip this. I got different thin shim stocks that I slide underneath it to, depending on how far this is out for whatever bore size. And if you don't want to have a bunch of mandrels sitting around, you make a mandrel, and then you can slide these, make the mandrel a little tighter than this, but my mandrels are normally a little tighter than this, and I can slide these rings, all different size rings, and essentially I have one mandrel that can fit whatever cylinder I'm cutting with this that I've bought from Joe. Works out great. And if you're setting, if you've got a mandrel like this, when you get it in your lathe and you're trying to dial it in, I try to make sure I'm as square as I can, but because you're checking the squareness here and here with dial indicators. When, say, when you're on there, now after it's on there, you want to dial indicate here to make sure that when this is turned into the lathe, that you're hitting the same, because a big no-no, and there's been other videos dropped where people are saying they're cutting shit crooked and stuff. If you can't get it, you do not want your cylinder in relationship with the piston to be tipped this way or that way. It is totally fine to tip your cylinder one way or the other. In fact, on some of my builds, I have actually intended tipping the cylinder for better performance gains. I'm not going to get into it and talk about which way that I tipped them and this and that, because that's something that's more in line with some of my race saws. You can change the performance of your cylinder by tipping it. It's totally fine to tip this way. The saw is not going to care, because I had a crankshaft. The saw is not going to care. It's going to be real loose. But the saw is not going to care because your piston, tips with it. You're not going to hurt nothing. Now, if you try to tip your your cylinder where it's like this and you're trying to run the piston up square and your cylinder's not true to it, yeah, you're going to run into a problem real quick. Short life-lived saw. And then, like, I get asked, if I'm on the lathe, I'll just readjust my tool and break the edges in here all at the lathe. It's not that big a deal. When I cut them like this, I cut this one flat. I plan on sanding it. I don't know where the piston's at for this one, but I save all kinds of pistons, guys, and I do all different kinds of different angles depending on whatever I'm doing. I've got some set up with steep angles on it where I've got sandpaper in it, and I'll go down there and I'll spin them, and say here's the chamber. My crummy artwork. I got different pistons set up with different angles. I might not want this band 100% flat. I might want to take, where it's actually like that a little bit, where I'm tighter out here and looser. So here's the piston, where I'm tighter. I want my tightest spots to be on the outside, and I want my loosest spots to be on the inside. And then that harsh edge that's now in there, I'll take a junk piston or mandrel material, and I will shape it the way I want, put sandpaper on it, and then I'll twirl it, and I can cut these corners down to change my approach. All kinds of things to do. And then I saw on a video today where when I twirl pistons, I make these things. I'll wrap them up with tape for all different. I can stick them in there. I typically like them a little bit tighter. The last 395 I did, I actually packed a piece of steel wool in there, and I turned this so you can see here where I broke my edge on my combustion chamber. And I saw a video today. I absolutely cringed because the gentleman held the cylinder, had the piston like that, just went in there in full speed bore, and I cringed when I don't have the piston around for that cylinder. But when I do that, I typically I'll set the cylinder on something firm. Typically I'll throw like a red shop towel or something on, and I'll get this out of my way, and then I will come in and I am turning that about that speed right there, and that steel wool allows me to rock back and forth, and I got it down there, and I am turning it just as slow as I can with as much pressure on it as I can, where I don't have smoke coming out of my drill, and I'm keeping it steady. And then I'll twirl it 20 times or so, and then gently take it out, clean everything, and then go again to get my desired result. Bad things could have happened spinning it that fast. I cringed so bad on that. I'm not gonna say names or nothing, but yeah, take your time. Another thing, if you don't want to use a piston and drill, say you didn't have a junk piston floating around, why do you think there's sticky residue on top of here? I will put a piece of sandpaper on this, have this in the lathe. I can put this in the lathe, and I can use the lathe to hold the mandrel, and I can put my tailstock in a, you can set it up with a dial indicator wherever you want, and I can actually put pressure on it with the tailstock and manually turn this and actually watch the dial caliper and see how much I'm actually taking out with sandpaper. And you can clean up a cylinder that way. There's lots of ways to do things, guys. I'm not saying my way is the right way. I just try to do it a very safe way. Like I said, you guys, if you wanted to set something up in a mill with a rotary table, you could do a chamber. You could do, let me get you out of here. I'm going to be able to drag this thing back there. There's gobs of videos. I've got videos where I've cut chambers on this with the 4-jawed chuck. Unfortunately, I can't hardly get to it, and we were turning some cast iron rotors down on that the last time I used it. But tools like this, they are your friends. You know, you have to dial in this way and this way, and then if by chance it's you put your cylinder on there and your 4 tabs aren't hitting right, tip it where it rocks with the piston. It's not a big deal. These are not rocket science saws we're dealing with there. Like I said, I've actually pitched cylinders for better performance gains on certain models. Certain models I've took pitch out of. Unfortunately, I still have not had time to test run that. I did get this gentleman's 4910 all together, so if it's not raining too bad tomorrow when I get out of work, maybe I can test run them. I decided to cut the chamber on that 359. Seems how there's not much I can do here tonight. I gotta dig that 359 out of that box, and I know my shop is absolutely horrendous. It is what it is. That's the bench I'd like to be working off from, but that's not going to happen. I got my race saw all torn apart over there. I've got saws over here that I need to test run. There's 3 of them right there that all need to be test run. I'm going to hold off on that one until I get his 395 done. You know, I got this time of year, I throw the trash on the floor, and it goes places. We'll just say that it gets swept up and tossed in that brown box there. Yeah. So, yeah, like I got a mild grade acid rust remover stuff in there. I got to put that up. I need to clean out my parts washer. That's an experimental racer build I got to get back onto. Once better weather gets here, that's the saw to beat right there. I want to hopefully make this one faster, hopefully to make that one faster. The old school stickers is staying the way it is. I purchased, I'm bad. Got rid of one. I just turned around and purchased another 501 the other day. I couldn't pass it up. Had to buy it. That's stock. I think I'll leave it stock for now until I figure out what I'm going to do with it. At the very worst, we can use it for testing. This is the only one I'm waiting for a check to show up for that one. I got to get it boxed up. The check showed up for that 661. I got to get a 7-pin 3/8 rim back on it, get it drained of fluids. I'm hoping I can get both, because this crate goes to, I'm going to try to get both those saws in that crate, and then hopefully I can use this box to ship that 661 out, because this is a pretty durable box. My other boxes, this is just a cut up box, but these are too small, and I mean I could get it in there probably if I took it apart, but these don't hold up well at all for shipping. I don't like shipping in them. So yeah, I got to build the 395 there. I got 372 that's going to be a race saw. So I got to do a muffler mod on that thing. I didn't even want to touch the thing, but maybe tomorrow when I get out of work, is now that chamber's cut, just got to clean it up a little bit and roll my edge in a little bit, and then I can. That's another thing too. Once you get your chamber cut, now I can bolt this on the saw, throw some solder in there, figure out what the squish is, and then I know exactly how much I have to cut off the base. Pretty simple. So hopefully this helps people out. I didn't make this video to make fun of anybody. I hope it helps people out. But I've heard horror stories where people have put this whole thing up in a drill and tried to use a drill press to run this down through and completely ruin cylinders. I've heard of people putting this in a lathe and try to run it. That's not designed for that. Bad things are going to happen, really, really bad things, if not hurt yourself, let alone destroy a cylinder. So, yeah. And I don't even know if I'm going to use this mandrel. I might take these rings off and use my steel mandrel. These aluminum ones, after you use them a while, they get really hard to dial in. They're good for one or two things, and they're nice to cut if you got a wimpy lathe, but I tell you guys, these hydraulic cylinders, this is what these start out as. Hydraulic cylinder. These things hold up. You can clamp onto them 1,000 times, and very, very durable. Very, very. You know, I got all kinds of mandrels. Got one there, bunch back there, all different projects. I got different spacing material here for some of the pistons I'm making. That's my last bit. I think there's a number on this. I gotta Google that number and see if I can find replacement bits. The last couple ones I thought were the right ones. They're too small, like way too small. So I'm down. I think I got one more flip on that one, and then I have these are different. They fit in there. They're a different type of bit. I use these for cutting crankshafts, but in a pinch, I guess I could use that. But I like these gold ones for just doing aluminum. But yeah, so here's me blibber blabbering, and hopefully these pointers help out. And I like to promote things that I like. I've used the piss out of this, so I like to promote it. But if you already have your mandrel made, you can mill a slot in there and build this. You don't have to buy Joe's thing. I bought Joe's thing just because it cut down on a lot of time, and I wanted to help a friend's business out. And it saved me a buttload of machining. And I don't remember which mandrel it is. It's one of these. I don't know if it's that one. It might be that one with the tape on it back there, but or it might be the one that's in the lathe. One of these is set up where it's just a little bigger diameter than Joe's, and I can slide those plastic rings on there and have a multi-mandrel. So yep. So I don't know. I need to get caught up and then re-clean the shop so I could turn around and mess it up again. I don't know how many times I've cleaned this thing. This is a 064 cylinder for my buddy. It's got some transfer. He didn't think it was savable. I'm going to try to save it. I might make a video on that. It'd be cool if I can save that for my buddy. He doesn't even want to port it. He wants to like keep the saw all original. So it'd be really, really cool if I'd have to measure the bore on that. That looks pretty big. I believe he said it was an 064. It might be a flat top 660. I can't remember. Thought he said it was an 064 though. But either way, it'd be really, really cool if I could save that cylinder for him. And if I can't, you know, he's not out nothing. Either way, he had to get a cylinder. So if I can save it for him, awesome. If I can't, I'm just out a little bit of time just goofing off on it. So that'll be for another video. But yeah, I've got all kinds of pistons everywhere. I've got drawers full of them. I can't get to them right now. All different kinds of tops, different things, you know, different, you know, sometimes I only need to take a half a degree out of a chamber to adjust it to where I want it. Yep. Sometimes I'll push these down into and take that harsh edge off that I put in there. So, yeah. So, I don't know. Hopefully I can get that thing ported tomorrow. But I'm going to call this a video, guys. I've blabbered on here for 29 minutes and 42 seconds. So you guys have a good one.